So what we're going to do to get started is add some new sounds to our music. So we're going to use a function called fitMedia. I'm adding this block. If what fitMedia does is it takes some sounds from your sound library that we're going to choose and it places it in your digital audio workstation. So you have different, it's like a mini form. You have different things that you have to file called the parameters. The first thing is the file name, which is the audio file name. So here, when we click on this icon, it opens the sound library. And we're going to select sounds. So what you can do is you can look for sounds by artist or by genre or by instrument. For me, I'm going to look at cinematic score sounds. And so what you can do is listen to your sounds by clicking on the play button. And you can test some sounds and see which ones you like. So I'm going to choose this one. So when you've chosen your sound file, you click here. Clicking here is going to paste the sound name wherever your mouse is, so wherever your cursor is. So here I'm on file name and I'm going to copy the file name. See, it wrote down RD Cinematic Score Strings 14. So that's the name of my sound. Then I have to choose a track number. So tracks are the lines in your digital audio workstation. So I'm going to put 1 here because I want to put this sound in my first line. And then start location is the time in your music where you want your sound to start. So I want it to start at the beginning, so I'm going to write 1. And then I want it to last for 2 measures. Measures are time units. So let me write down 2. So now let me show you my code. I have one fitMedia block and I have my sound name here, then my track number, which is the line, then 1, which is the beginning in time, the measure where it's going to start, and then 2 is the measure where it's going to stop. Once you have written your first line of code, you can click on run. And you can see here that it has added my sound, cinematic score strings 14. It's on the first line, so track number 1, and it's from measure 1 to 2, okay? And here you can play your music and see how it sounds. Okay, so what we're gonna do now is actually let it play for longer. So it still starts at measure 1, but I'm gonna change this 2 to 4. So when I run it again, you can see that it's still on the first track, track number 1, but it goes from measure 1 through 4. So it's longer. I'm going to show you what it does if we put it on track number 2 instead of track number 1. So after my sound name, I wrote 2 instead of 1. Okay, so see, it's now on line number 2. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is put it back in track number 1, and I'm going to add another fitMedia, and I'm going to place it on track number 2. And I'm going to make it last as long as the first one, so from measure 1 through 4, okay? And so for the 5, what I'm going to do, find a new genre. So I'm going to try trap. And I'm going to try to find a melody. Okay, so that sounds good to me. So I'm adding the file name here, and like I said, it's on track 2, so line number 2, starting at measure 1 and finishing at measure 4. And when I run the code, you can see that I have my 2 sounds, the first one on the first line and then the second one on the second line. So let's hear it. Okay, so here I've selected the sounds so that they sound good together. Maybe when you're going to place some sounds in your digital audio workstation, they're not going to fit well together. So you can just try different sounds together and see which one you prefer. And I'm just going to add a third fitMedia here, and with some trap and adding world percussion, and I'm going to try this one. Okay, so we're going to try this. And so now you've understood how it's working. So we have music on track 1 and 2, so we're going to add track 3. Start at measure 1 and end at measure 4. So let's run the code. And you can see here that I have my third line also from measure 1 through 4. And let's hear it. Okay, so that's good enough. And I just want to tell you one more thing about fitMedia. So let's say you want to add another sound on track 1 after the first one. So let's add another fitMedia. And let's say we're going to add another percussion sound. So I want to add it on track number 1, and I want to add it after my first sound. So I'm going to start the location at measure 4, and then end location is going to be, for example, measure 6. So when we run the code, you can see that I have another sound here that starts at measure 4 and ends at measure 6. But if sometimes you're going to make a mistake and have them overlap. So for example, if I have this fourth sound getting started at measure 3 instead of measure 4 and I run the code, you're going to see in your console that there is a warning message. So it's not an error, the code can still run, but there's a warning. It says overlapping clips, cinematic score strings, and world percussion on track 1. So track 1 is the first line. And so when you see a yellow warning message, it means that in your code you have some overlapping sounds. So it's just a quick thing that you need to be careful about. Okay, so that's it for our fitMedia. And now I'm just going to show you what it looks like in text mode. So I click on the toolbox here and toggle blocks mode. And now we're back to code, okay? So my fitMedia functions, please note that the fit starts with a lowercase, but media starts with an uppercase. So if you're writing code in text mode, you have to be careful about the lower and upper cases. And then your parameters are written in between the parentheses, and they're separated by a comma, okay? So when you write text code, be careful not to forget any commas or any parentheses. So I'm going to show you what it does if you do. Let me run the code with these errors, and you're going to see here in red you have an error message. Bad input on line 13. So usually the error is going to show you which line you have to check. So here we can see line 13. Oh, I forgot to put one comma, so let me run it again, and now there is an error when reading the code, bad input on line 15. So in this case, it says there's an error on line 15, but it's actually a missing parenthesis on line 14. So if you can't find an error, sometimes check the line before to see if you've closed all your parentheses. So if I close my parentheses and I run my code, there should not be, well, there's the overlap, so let me change that. And now when I run my code, the script ran successfully.